association talk about it as the mini-city of Arabia. It's owned by Indonesia and Australia in conjunction. It's not very far from us here. The cattle industry has also contributed to our system. And of course, progressively now, it is just going slowly but surely ahead each year. And eventually Kununurra will reach its population level, which is designed to be 18 to 20,000 people. 30 miles down the valley, there's another town being surveyed, which will be another town developed that will carry 15,000 people at Survey Hills. And I might add for you, Mount Isa Mines owns a silver, lead, copper, zinc and gold deposit at Survey Hills, which they claim is as big as Mount Isa. And just across the border, at a place called Cape Dorette in the Northern Territory, will be a deep water port built, and another town which will be the administration section of the Northern Territory. And that will be developed not before the Northern Territory is a state in its own right, whether it's at the turn of the century or another 20 years, it doesn't matter. But that will practically happen as the thing progresses. And when we've got our 60,000 people in the region, we then can irrigate that 800,000 acres of land. We can develop our hydropower station. Some of you may have been to Darwin, have you? Well, Darwin has about 78,000 people in it, and it needs 50 megawatts of electricity every day to run it. We can generate 80 megawatts of electricity from Argyle. So we've got plenty of power for us in the future. We've got plenty of water. Lake Argyle, I might add, each year has 8 months of the year where it never rains. And yet it hasn't stopped flowing for 14 years. It just gives you an idea of the great water resource. And that applies to far north Queensland, the Northern Territory and the Kimberley. So it's not just a one-sided operation. The whole development is across the top of Australia. Now we're going to enter here into what we call one of the wetland Everglade regions, created by the damming of the river. And I'd like you to bear in mind that 18 years ago this didn't exist. It wasn't here. And all the trees and reed beds and things that you see in the which we show you today, they weren't here either. It was totally devastated. There was no grass, no trees, no water, no animals, no birds. And today it's a treasure chest of the different wildlife. Now, up here you've got the rainbow bee-eaters. See them up here in the dead tree? Not a common tree, a bird, but very attractive and a magnificent aviator. Here you've got the corellas. Now they've paired off to mate. Now not all the corellas mate in each year. There's only small groups that come out and mate, and they select their hollows, and then the ritual of having that hollow accepted is well worth looking at. Now this bird here on the left-hand side is a very mismaligned bird. Now you'll find that if you look very carefully, it has a neck like a snake and a bill like a spear, and it's not waterproof. Now that means that the buoyancy is negative practically, and it enables the bird to go to the bottom of the waterway. Now when it goes to the bottom of the waterway, it selects a fish about the size of a sardine, and that is because it can't crush the fish. It doesn't have the ability to crush like the cormorant. And it throws the fish back and swallows it whole and digests the whole fish whole. Now its competitors, the cormorants, they have the crushing bill and they're semi-waterproof, and they go down about a metre away from that bloke's food chain. And that means they can't steal his food. If they did, they outnumber the data and they'd starve him out of the waterways and he would become extinct. So nature protects the water chains, or at least I should say the food chains, for the different species. I think it was just a head of a little crop just on that little log there, I'm not sure. I think it just slipped in the water there. And we'll see some up here upstream a little later, so don't worry about them now. So as we just go in here, you'll just on the right-hand side, you'll see another extensive wetland there. And the dead trees are very important, because they are referred to as boarding houses. Now listen, if you want me to talk to you, you better be quiet, otherwise I won't talk to you. Okay? Now that white bird that you see there is territorial, and they are the large white egret. Now there's 4 species of the egret. You've got the large white egret, the fishing egret, the plumed egret, and you've got the tick egret, or the cattle egret. And they are territorial. They select their territories during the day, and they guard those with great jealousy. And then at night time they join up in a flock and they roost at night in the one rookery. Now, the dead trees, lots of people say, oh, but why don't you get rid of the dead trees? Now, that's a very important part to the ecosystem. Now, in the ones on the water, they have hollows there which the hornets build their mud nests in, and they entomb the live caterpillars in those, and the birds open those mud nests and eat the caterpillars. The little hollows are the nesting places for the finch family, the flycatcher family, and the wren family, and the cockatoo parrot family. That's the small parrots, like the grass parrots and the budgerigar. And they provide the eggs and the chickens that the snakes eat. And then at night time, the cockatoos and things roost over on those trees, over the water, giving them as much protection as possible from the feral cats and the pythons. We've got the big black-headed water python and the olive water python here. And they swim out and try and get their supper. And they know very well that they run the tremendous risk that if they come out to get a cockatoo, that the crocodiles will eat them. So there's always somebody eating somebody in nature's backyard. Now there's some pygmy geese. Now they were nearly extinct before the lakes were built. They're a magnificent bird. They look like a little duck, but they're a goose. You've got the big monitor lizards. They grow to a metre plus nearly up to 2 metres. And then you've got the long-necked turtles, the Johnson freshwater crocodiles. And we have observed on numerous occasions the saltwater crocodile, which is called the estuarine crocodile, because he has got to come to the freshwater to breed. Now, the reason for that is that if he breeds in the salt water overheats his eggs and they rot. So he waits till the monsoon comes, which is January, February, March, and he goes into the lagoons and the waterways to start his breeding program after the rains arrive. And the freshwater doesn't set that problem up of overheating his eggs in the nest, because they build compost heaps. And the compost heap generating its own energy, you probably put your hand in a bag of lawn clippings at some stage, after a couple of days, you know how hot they get. Well, that's how they incubate their eggs. And these freshwater species, he nests now from July, August, September, and he builds a nest in the sandy ground, which I'll show you a place where they breed up here a little later. There's the blue-winged kookaburra there. Now that fellow is the same as the kookaburra in the south, but he can't laugh. He's got a nice blue flash on him. See him up here at about 11 o'clock high, just behind that little dead tree, on that green tree. You'll see him there. And he's a great predator. You're always looking for a mouse or a lizard or a little snake. And he stands no nonsense from the hawks either. So you'll see the dead trees over there on the game on the left-hand side, and the bamboo or the thickets on the farther on. And if you look at the palm of your hand, turn it over, the fingers represent the water, and I should say the fingers represent the little peninsulas of land, and the gap between your fingers represents the waterways. And that's how this big wetland looks. And alongside here, you'll see some very minute and petite little lilies. See the little water, the little flowers? And you've heard of the Aboriginal Abies corroboree. And then we've got the bigger mauve water lilies. You can see a few of them just starting to establish themselves over there. Well, I suppose you've heard about the fairies and the moonlight night having their corroboree. Well, you can imagine them dancing around on top of the water lily leaves there, the little baby flower. I think I might have been here too long, you think. Now, there's a head of a crocodile. See that stump in the middle there? See, just like a stick in the water, see? Just like two knobs. Yeah, anyway, we'll get some others closer to you after. There, once again, very territorial. The reed bed is the home of a multiple number of different insects that are fed by nature from the different drifting reed islands that are breeding grounds for the different insects of the wetland, and in there the reeds is the home for the reed warbler. He's a wonderful songster, not an attractive looking bird, but a great singer. And then you've also got the crates there. Now, any of you who are interested in birds, you'll know that crates are very rare. And the ones that live here are the Malaysian crate. And very rarely will you see them emerge from the reed bed, because they run the risk of being eaten by the water predators or the aerial predators. Up here on the front left of us, you'll see the big high outcrop of rock. That's where we claim our dinosaur came to rest there. See him sitting up on top there? In the head on the left, the big fat body and the old stony tail running down towards us. You can see why we need that hydro power station. See the power station building is cut to pieces there of the smoke stacks. That tower is part of the micro communication system. That's the section that goes out to the plume of Wyndham.
We're all the paperbark family of Australia. And that one word covers all those paperbarks, but that one particular tree I was showing you that bears the name Melaleuca is called a cajuput tree. C-A-J-U-P-U-T, cajuput. And you know, they're just a life tree there.
Yeah.
You can drink drinking water from them, you can flat them for...
You bleed them like a...
wildlife.
Bleed them like a
Like a rubber tree.
rubber tree. Yeah.
You know how to do it, do you?
Yeah.
Not too many people know how to do it, that's the trouble.
Yes.
You can also use the bark to make a shelter. You can use the nuts at a certain time of the year to eat. You can plait the leaves to make a net to catch birds or fish if you want to. The only trouble is, as far as I can see, it'd be very hard to tell which was the tree because it looks just like every other. Well, I shouldn't say that because there's an amazing variety of gum trees, but it looks very like just an ordinary ghost gum, so you'd really have to know it before you could survive from it. And as I think it grows mainly close to the water, you'd have water anyhow. Quite an interesting old character on the boat, as you heard his commentary. He reminded us very much of Uncle Tom. There was no mucking around on his boat when he first started to give his commentary, and some people were talking. He said, well, if you're going to talk, I won't tell you anything. And when we got back to tie up, the kid got up to help tie up, and he said, I'm not going to tie this up until you sit down, kid. He was quite an old character. Where we stopped, where I was talking to him and asking him about the tree, we stopped back at the Zebra Gardens, and we'd already been there during the day, so we sat on the boat and chatted to him and to some couple of tour guide people who were there, and Deb and Noel and Boz talked to a girl who works out, she works out close to the Zebra Gardens. She rides horses during the day for some chap out there who owns racehorses, and she does that for her board, and then she works during the evening. While we were waiting, you get a cup of tea and biscuits on the boat. The skipper the old chap threw the crumbs overboard, and there was an amazing variety of fish that came around. We'd seen them earlier in the day when we were out at Zebra Gardens, but it was just so frustrating to be there without a line. There were big catfish and bream, they'd be like a good sized snapper, and dozens of archerfish, those ones that squirt water or squirt whatever they squirt to catch their prey. And he was saying that sometimes if he doesn't feed them, they'll come up to the surface and they'll actually spit at him until he feeds them. They were quite fascinating. They're about the size of a big parkeri and about the same shape, only they've got a longer snout.
We've just visited the Argyle Downs homestead, which has now been turned into a museum. The home originally stood on what is now the bed of the lake, but before the lake was formed, it was rock by rock and re-erected in exactly the same fashion as it was originally, and now some of the rooms have been set aside as a museum. In 1882, Michael Durack and the party landed at Cambridge Gulf, opposite where Wyndham now stands, and after travelling southward, selected land in the Ord Valley, near the junction with the Ben River. This was later to become Argyle Station, in the centre of the Durack holdings. not only were they amongst the first settlers of this region, but they also brought about the start of the giant beef industry of the Kimberley when they made a 2-year overland drive from Queensland, bringing with them carts, wagons and 7,500 head of cattle.
Sure done.
The Durack holdings were 7 million acres. In 1895, the Argyle Downs homestead was completed. The mud mortar for the walls and so on were made out of anthills. So the anthills, there certainly be plenty of them. They certainly had their uses. The homestead was the home of Patsy Durack and his family for many years. Mary Durack, her daughter, is a famous, perhaps one of the most famous Australian authors or authoresses. Ploz has been reading her book called Kings and Grass Castles, and she's got other ones, sequels to that, which the lady at the house was telling us are probably more interesting than Kings and Grass Castles. Eventually the Ord irrigation project will enable 73,000 hectares of land to be irrigated. Stage 1 involved the construction of the Kununurra diversion dam, the development of 12,000 hectares of irrigable land on Ivanhoe Plain, that's where Kununurra is, and the establishment of Kununurra Township. The irrigation project was officially opened in 1963. And stage 2, as I said, will allow for the further development of a total of 73,000 hectares of land. Well, we're now at Lake Argyle tourist village, and it's certainly nothing like we expected at all. It's back from the lake edge. There's nearly no beach at the lake at all. There's a little place where you can launch boats and where you can take boat trips from. Apart from that, this is this very old-looking, very scungy, prefabricated set of buildings that I suppose are sort of motels and a shop, and that's it. If you didn't know, you'd be a bit cheesed off if you'd come all the way out here to have, say, a week's holiday at a lakeside resort somewhere, because there's just absolutely nothing. Of interest at Halls Creek, before I forget, was the hard case jail. While we sat having breakfast, we looked through the window and the jail was just across the street. It was a real hard case affair. There was one compound for women and one compound for men. They were inside the fence, but strategically placed outside the fence were some stumps of trees, so that the friends or relatives could come and sit and yarn to visit the prisoners inside. And while we were there was 2 or 3 people came along and sat for quite a long time, having a yarn, obviously, to someone they knew. Then some of the prisoners sort of got up and yawned and stretched and went off. I don't know whether they were going off to breakfast or whether they were going off on a work detail or what it was. But it certainly looked like a hard case sort of place. We went to the pictures in Kununurra, the outdoor theatre, to see, of all things, Crocodile Dundee. It was on with another film, I forget the name of it at the moment, which was quite funny. But it was quite a hard case affair for the first part of the first film. You couldn't see it all because right next door to the picture theatre there's either a basketball court or a football oval, and they had their floodlights glaring so that they were showing virtually right on the screen. But that was an experience, the first time for an outdoor theatre. No speakers in the car, they just turned the volume up really loud. Hard luck for the neighbours. The time is an unbelievable 6:30 in the morning, and we've already been on the road for 10 minutes. No, driving into a most gorgeous sunrise, having spent a night at a hard-case place called Timber Creek, which is about like what it sounds like. There's a pub, she's a real out-and-back one. There's a motel, the grumpiest people in Australia, a school up on stilts, and a police station, and a few Aboriginals, and that's it. We left a message for the girl in the motel to tell her to learn how to smile. All we got was grunts, oops, grunt, grunt. Had the key thrown at us, weren't told where the unit was. Weren't even told where the motel was, because it's sort of attached to the camping ground, but it looked like part of their private residence or something. So they got a message left to teach them a little bit about tourism. Probably just typical outback types. Listen to the grumpy girl talking to an Aboriginal and calling him Jack, and Jack Jim, and Jim Jimmy. And Jimmy wanted to buy a tyre, so she completely ignored me and waved Jimmy in to the shop. So Jimmy came in. What do you want? Jimmy mumbled something, and she said, but Missy give you $125. Missy already give you $125. Which time Missy came out. And Missy said, what do you want, Jimmy? Jimmy mumbled something. I already give you $125, Jimmy. What do you do with monies? Jimmy mumbled something like, I think he said he spent it at the pub, but I'm not quite sure. So then Missy said, you want buy tyre? Bit late for buy tyre now, Jimmy. Oh, I give you more monies. So she gave Jimmy more monies. Poor Jimmy shuffled out. We thought we were in the southern states of the United States 100 years ago. It really is bad, isn't it? That's the other side of the Aboriginal problem.
Yeah.
I imagine Jimmy works, but I imagine also that it's probably the whole setup is part of a station of some sort. By the types I saw wandering around the back looked like a couple of jackaroos and so on. So probably the tourists are just a bloody nuisance. Yeah.
Really, when you think about it, they're going to be getting more and more tourists.
Oh yeah. Cattle on the road.
You know, mostly always go for the...
Yeah. They say you've got to be careful because they come out at night and sleep on the tar seal because it's warm.
Yes, they feed on the side of the road. Too.
Yeah. That's really hard driving, isn't it? Driving into the sunrise like that. Yeah, somebody mucked the windscreen up. They tried to wash it so we could see the pictures the other night, didn't they?
Yeah, straighten it.
Met some real character, or heard some real characters in the pub last night. There were just a few locals who completely ignored us, but that's by the by, because they were having their own conversation, and I must remember about one guy telling his mate about the new place that started up where you can get a haircut, you can get a shave, and I won't put the rest of the story on the tape. All right, Uncle Colin, we've just crossed over Skull Creek Minor.
This would be amazing.
No snapper either, not one. And we're just coming to Skull Creek Major. Still, oh, there's water in it though. How about that? 77 by Don and Francis Hall. Now Don, well, he's one of those self-made men. He started off as a ringer. Got a job on a station over near Wyndham. He ran away from home when he was about 14. And from that level he started, he did all sorts of things, contract fencing, tank sinking, mustering, bull catching. And then he was shrewd enough to get himself a bookmaker's licence to operate on the country tracks. So it wasn't long before he had enough money put away to buy his first pub. That was Laramar. But now he owns this little pub here, an abattoir down the back, and 3 cattle stations. One of the stations that he worked on as a young fellow, well, last year he bought that same one for $2.4 billion.
about the front of the started off as a ringer. The Don only owns about a square mile of country in this picture little valley here. It is now surrounded by the new Gregory National Park. Eventually that will be one of the biggest parks in the Northern Territory. It'll cover an area of over 10,000 square kilometres, taking in flora and fauna, all ranging from the desert regions right up to the tropical areas.
We're now on Jim's river and crocodile tour.
We're stuffed up and down the track out here. This is a bit of the real territory, the working part. And the biggest cattle stations in the world are along the Victoria River, right in the heart of the land of the big cattle runs. Hence the little abattoir. Now this used to be a little mobile abattoir. Don't have it up near Darwin, roaming round the top end. And there he had a licence to kill pet meat. But early in 1983, he moved it down here closer to home and acquired a licence to kill beef for the home market. Now he puts through about 100 head of cattle a day, employs about 25 men. He gets the beef from the surrounding stations and his own. It's all boned out here, packaged into its respective cuts, frozen and then sent to southern markets. So if you get a piece of nice, juicy, tender steak down here somewhere, and you can bet your sweet pippy it didn't come from here. Oh, yeah. Most of this meat goes to processed meat, such as canned pie, frankfurts, tinned soup, that sort of stuff. And they like to get bull meat for that if they can, because bull meat is coarser, absorbs more water, fills the cans up quicker. Now, you know what you get when you buy that can of soup in Woolies, not a bull. Also, notice here the old railway line's been put to good use. Makes a very good stockyard. And the rails, they were the sleepers, were made of steel, because anything made of wood up here is soon demolished by the white ants. The grey box or Eucalyptus petifica, they're the most common species. The one here on your right, getting its autumn tone leaves right there, and that's the northern currajong, or brachychiton, easily recognised by its leaf if you know the southern currajong. Here on your left-hand side, the one with the goldy-looking trunk, that's the stinkwood or helicopter tree, lots of those about also. Americano diocarpus. The seed has a wing on the top like a helicopter and it spins around in the wind, and that's how it's dispersed. One over there on your left with a dark trunk and the little button leaves is a big one in the centre of the caravan park. That's the Bohinia, or Lysophilum Cunningham line. Another one over there. The one here on your right with the yellow flowers, that's the kapok, or Cockbusternum fraserite. Shortly those flowers will set to a bowl like cotton and the kapok is inside around the seed. Common hake here over there on your left. This one here on the left is a bloodwood or Eucalyptus polycarpus. The next one with the half bark is the woolly butt or argyle apple, Eucalyptus conferiflora. More wallabies grazing out here on the flat ahead of us. On the boat, if you've got any questions, hang on. It's a bit hard to hear while the motors are going behind me. And most likely, by the time we get back, I will have answered your questions in my commentary. If not, I'll certainly endeavour to do so.